All right. Hi, friends, and welcome. I hope you're ready for some fun. This is an interactive question and answer live webinar. So it is driven by your questions. We did not get any questions submitted in advance. So I will open up the chat to make sure that I can catch any questions that you guys might be asking. But otherwise, we have a couple options for how we can approach this, which is one, you can show me stuff going on your screen and we can troubleshoot some of that, or we are able to have it show up on my screen. So let me know, any one of you, and certainly you can come on camera and unmute and we can go ahead and get started. Okay, I think the first question needs to be, can you hear me?
Yes, we can hear you.
Okay, great. Thank you. All right, folks. So we're joining this call because you have taken some or all of the content for the Overcoming Inbox Overwhelm. And now it's time to ask any questions that you have or figure out how we can get this applied. What can I help you with? You can certainly ask if there's any concepts you need me to cover again. Hello, friends. Thank you for joining today. Great to see everybody. Just kind of doing a quick check-in. So the idea for today's session is that it is a question and answer seminar. So the goal was for anybody who's gone through the videos to come and ask questions that you have. Vera, I just saw your hand go up. Please feel free. It's probably easiest for you to go unmute and ask whatever question you have. Michael, I can hear you a little bit, but I'm not hearing anything else. Me? I can hear you.
Okay, that was by accident. My bad.
All right.
All right.
So we have a variety of people. Okay, so I'm going to have to draw some of this stuff out of you, but the idea today is for you guys to be asking questions. So this is to take this concept to the next level, to apply some of the stuff that we've talked about in the different videos. So let's start with who has questions about the process of getting your inbox cleaned up. Where are you on the first step of the process of getting your inbox clean?
Hey, Jennifer, I haven't done anything with the inbox clean piece. Could you just run through it really quickly? It seems like it's an impossible task, which you've heard many times, I'm sure. But what's the first step of it again?
Okay, so I will highly encourage you to make sure that you watch the 5-minute video on getting your inbox clean. I will go through it, but there's definitely some steps, and I don't have the whole presentation ready to go or anything like that. So I will do a quick screen share. So the process for getting your inbox clean is that you first have a clear way of indicating the things that you still have to do. So if you look in your inbox and you have just piles and piles of stuff. So think of it as an example, like if something is more than 90 days old, do you still need to touch it? Because if you don't, you can do you can sort by date, or you can do a search based on date and things like that, and then just move that stuff. So the basic process is I'm going to flag a couple of messages as these might be my to-do items. Once you have a clear visual way of indicating what you still have to do, you can make a new folder that you call Keep and take everything that you have not marked as to do and move it. Move that to Keep. And that leaves the other stuff in your to-do box or in your inbox. Now, I like to have a folder that I use just for my to-do items as well, because that means that I've determined when something's in my inbox, where does that land? So I go to do my work in my to-do box, but I also know the volume of email that you guys get, that may not be the best way to do that. Michael, I hate to pick on you, but you have truly taken some of these concepts and taken them to an entirely new level in your organization. So while that was the simple 1-2 of how do you quickly get your inbox to inbox 0, would you mind sharing, Michael, a little bit about some of the things that you've done to really take that to the next level?
I actually do a lot of that, what you were just talking about, but I have it in a respond folder instead. And what ends up happening is, some stuff becomes far less important than we think it is, and I also have Outlook programmed to open to my respond folder as my default folder, and then instead of my inbox, because otherwise I'll just be drilled right into the inbox immediately. So like this morning, I used to work offline. That's how I did it. But the problem is you lose a lot of your functions that way. So I'll sort everything, and then my inbox is piling up right now, and it's just going to stay there. I see the number counting up, but I'm not actually looking at it because I'm in the respond folder. And the key that I found to doing that was to make it open in the respond folder instead, so I don't immediately see the newest messages when I launch it.
It's a great technique. And there is a tool out there. There's a tool that you can use as an add-on in Outlook. So I'll do my quick screen share again. As an add-on in Outlook, there's this guy up here called add-ins, and it's a tool called Boomerang. And one of the things that you can do with Boomerang is you actually can use some tools in there that include inbox pause. So you can pause your inbox for a little while so it's not continually tracking up. And you can also have something that's like you're snoozing a message, so it might bubble up later. And these are pre-approved add-ins to Outlook, so you don't have to go through any special admin permissions to get those added. So that's great. So Tim, it can be very daunting. Like I said, the first step in that is making sure that you have a clear visual indicator of everything that you have to do. And if you truly, usually when we do the full-blown class, I ask people like, what's their number? And you can look in the lower left-hand side of your screen when you're selected your inbox, and it'll tell you how many messages you have in your inbox total and how many are unread. And I mean, I've had people with up to 200,000 messages in their inbox in really just a few minutes, go through and sweep. And part of that philosophy was not to worry about stuff that was more than X amount of time old, and that X might be 30 days. But they just decided that there was enough, like that was as far back as they were going to go. So they moved everything from those 30 days into the keep folder, or from past 30 days into the keep folder. And then they went through the things that were in the current 30 days, made sure there were clear visual indicators on the things that needed to be done, and then separated out. So again, Michael called it respond, whatever you want to call it. And we do not get caught up in over sorting messages, because the search is really powerful in Outlook. So you don't have to worry about folder, subfolder, subfolder. Instead, a folder called keep, or some people will call it by year for archiving purposes. So a folder called 2020 is certainly a place that you don't have to worry about sorting everything.
Perfect, thank you. And quick question, I guess, more for Michael than anything is, so Michael, when you do that, are you encouraging your staff to do that as well, like processing and stuff like that, or is that stuff like they have some things that are too important that they can't really miss come in certain times?
Yeah, that's a great point. I mean, one of the things that there's more to what we were just talking about. I have extensive rules set up that auto forward active loans to the LOA that's assigned to the file. So when I open it up after it's been disclosed, I just modify a rule I already have that looks for loan number, address, that kind of stuff. There's a handful of things it looks for. Automatically forwards all emails related to that to the LOA involved. And the LOAs and the processors, because their jobs aren't to be selling and to really be doing it, is they definitely do sort their emails, and they go offline, but they're checking back every hour, where I haven't been in my email since this morning, and they know that they need to text me and IM me if they want my attention right now, because I'm working on a bunch of big projects. So they'll get me involved if they need to. So they're definitely not doing it the same way that I am, but they are still taking breaks here and there from it, but getting back in and checking it much more frequently than I do.
Beautiful. Thanks.
Yep.
Oh, oops, go ahead.
No, please.
I was going to ask you the next question, so you finish up.
Well, I think that, so what we're hearing though is like there's a difference between your process and your habit. And so that would be the thing that I'd encourage, is to really think about like what process makes sense for you. And so Michael having those rules forwarding to the LOAs is a process part, but then his habit of I'm only checking it X number of times a day. And then the final part of that is the communication. So, for example, I worked with an organization that was responsible for shipping, and they were working on today's shipments up till like 11 a.m. So they had an auto responder on that said, if you're trying to reach me about today's shipments, call me or text. And otherwise, I will respond to this message after 11. And so it's the process, the habit, and the communication that all come together. Tim, you have another question. It looks like Helen also unmuted. So please, right now we're kind of talking in the get clean area, but we're happy to cover any topics that you guys have questions on today.
All right, Helen's not going yet. I had a question also on the show as conversations.
Okay.
Is that something you encourage people to utilize, or is that more people miss more things if you do that? It just seems like it's quicker. You're responding to the most up-to-date email. So it seems like a no-brainer to me, but I don't know. I just wanted to get your thoughts on it quick.
Well, so I have a couple things along that lines. One is a quick tip on using the cleanup conversation part as well. So view as conversation and cleanup conversation work really well together. The idea of cleanup conversation is that it will look for, if I've sent a message out to 5 people and 4 of those people did replies to all like sequentially, and 1 person maybe did a one-off. When you hit this tool, so it's, am I sharing? Let me go back. Nope, I'm not sharing. So hold on. I don't want to demo without sharing it with you. When you hit this tool up here called, and it's just under the home tab, called cleanup, you can clean up the conversation itself or the whole folder or folders and subfolders. And the idea, I'm going to just do this folder. Right now, there's 53 items in this folder, 47 unread. When I clean up the folder, oop, it didn't have anything in this one. And this I didn't have set up for that particular thing. But so that's just one thing, is that also takes it to a much more concise view of the messages. And then let's see if we can go to this. The view where you have the ability to toggle on the conversation view or toggle it back off. The thing that most people seem to miss to me is that there is I don't know if I have enough back and forth in here to demonstrate it. There's a little toggle mark to the left. And I feel like there's a lot of people who do still miss that if they're not familiar with how conversations in Outlook work. But I actually love that I can turn that feature off and on. Most of the time I do leave it on, but if I needed it back off, you can literally just turn it right back off and go back to normal. So part of that is personal preference and it also to me goes back to, where did you start with email? Because people who started in Outlook with email are not as familiar or comfortable with conversation view. And people who started in Gmail, that's all they ever had the option of was conversation view. And it took people a while to get used to it, but now many people like it. So it's a preference. But what I like about that is it also, when I do show as conversation, it gathers everything from where I've maybe stored it. Maybe it's in sent items, depending on where all those messages might be, it brings them all together without having to do a search. So I like it, but again, it's a preference situation. And I don't know that everybody's in love with it.
Thank you. It's perfect.
I use it all the time, Tim. I
keep
usually
it
don't do cleanup conversation though. I'll do cleanup folder, knowing that it's going to just delete them all. I mean, there's nothing better than seeing 12 unreads, or 112 go to like 99 just by one button. But you got to remember to read the threads then when you're going through the actual emails, because those other ones down below, like Jennifer was saying, will clearly be missed if you need to know the full context.
Yep.
And Tim, what's your preference?
I like the show as conversation for sure. It just
Okay.
is so much easier to get caught up, or everything filtered under, and then you can read the ones you missed in the same thread. It's almost like reading a text message chain.
Yep.
Rather than other text getting in between it type thing.
Agree. And again, it really goes back to then, what's the habit around that, and making sure that everybody's, whichever tool you're using, that you're pulling it together so that you can see all the stuff so you don't miss anything. Great. Helen, did you have something? It looked like you were trying to come off mute before. All right. So a couple other things. I'm curious, do you guys do a lot of going back and forth about trying to get appointment times set up?
Yeah, sometimes for sure.
Okay. So let me share with you one other tool that's built in here. It's an add-in, and I did do, if you look under the videos, it's a tool called Find Time. I did add that video to the Get Streamlined portion because I have found this tool to save me a ton of time going back and forth about getting meetings scheduled, especially with multiple users. So when I'm in an email, like trying to get something scheduled with people, whether they're inside or outside of the organization, this works. And it's not an invitation yet. It's literally like, hey, we just had this huge conversation and now we need to meet. Once you've used that add-in, to download the add-in called Find Time, you click to this guy called a meeting poll. And if you've ever used a tool like Doodle, oh, wait, am I sharing my screen?
Not sharing.
Yep, I was just catching it. Nope, not that one either. Thank you. And I'll go back through and do that again. Okay, so the place that you go to get your add-ins is this right here. It's just in Outlook called Get Add-ins. It's the same place you'd go for Boomerang if you were to do the inbox news. So the tool that you're looking for here is Find Time. And again, I did do this in one of your videos that's available to you on the YouTube channel. So once you download that, when you're in a message, so I've invited a couple of people. These can be internal or external. And it's this button, this new meeting poll, is where it starts by scanning. If they're internal, it looks for when is everybody available. If they're external, it's just showing when you're available. You can set the time for however long you need to meet. And in a moment, you'll be able to set the location as well. But then you just select when you possibly want to meet. So we can say like, oh, Friday, 8:30, 9:30, okay, and I could do 4 o'clock. And you can jump to other times, but here it's showing like, oh, one person, which is me, is not available during that time. You can also jump to different days. So if we need to jump into next week for more availability, you can add those as well. So now we'll hit next. It asks for a location, and then you click add to email. So what's going to happen is I like to make sure the first few times I send these out is I give them instructions on what to do. So I'll say, click on select options below and find the times that work best. And what'll happen is Patty will do this and Diego will do this because I have this going over to 2 people, and they'll be able to indicate for each one of the options I provided, yes, no, or the one that they prefer. If they find something that's together, it will automatically schedule the meeting in the calendar because it's holding space in your calendar for that. If you happen to schedule something over that because they haven't responded yet, it will no longer make that meeting option available to them. And if they don't find anything together, it'll come back and say like the results were unsuccessful, so try again kind of thing. So this automates that whole scheduling process. And I can't show you the back end of it because we don't have that account up, but at least I will just say, again, it's under Get Add-ins. And then when you do a new email, it's a new meeting poll. It is going to ask for you to have some people invited to the meeting in order for that to work. But that I find really reduces a lot of my email messaging as well because
Jennifer,
we just clear that up.
Do you utilize Microsoft Booking?
Ah, good question. Do you utilize it?
I don't. I actually use Calendly because I like it better, but I know Leader, and I have to pay for it obviously, but I know Leader One has it and allows it. I love Calendly where they just get the link and pick the time because in the proposed situations, it's not blocking all those times, is it? It's just showing what's available at that time.
Right. So here's the difference. When I am trying to get somebody on my, like when I'm actively trying to get somebody on my calendar, I want to take more of a lead with that. And that's when I use Find Time.
Okay.
When I have my link out there saying like, hey, if you want to book some time with me, that's when I would use Booking. And I've used Calendly and I've used Acuity. It just depends what you get used to and what you like and for what those reasons are. I was just demonstrating Booking on a call earlier today, and it's good. But if you're used to something else, it's kind of hard to do the change too. So
Sure.
Booking is a tool built into the Microsoft 365 platform that I think I did set this one up. Yep. So you can set up your calendar, add buffer time. You can customize your booking page. I mean, there's a lot of interlinks that you can do with that as well, with the goal of not having to have emails sent around to get meetings scheduled.
Right.
And Michael, the other way that I've seen like Calendly and things like that used is sort of like what I just described in Find Time, where you don't just have a public link out there and you just say, use this to book 15 minutes or 30 minutes and you send it out when you prefer. That's a different experience, and that probably more mimics the Find Time experience.
Yeah, which is what we're doing. The big reason that we stuck with Calendly, if anybody's curious is a couple of the appointments that we do, we actually have meet with Teresa for the first part and me for the second part. And Microsoft Booking does not have the ability to program that stuff into groups and teams like that. So we stuck with we stuck with Calendly for that.
That makes sense. It's a good use case.
But yeah, it's that the amount of emails back and forth and scheduling is exhausting.
Yep. And
Mentally for me.
there's no need for it. There's no need for it. So the tools are here. We just need to leverage them. Great. Great questions so far. All right. What other questions do we have? We talked, and again, that idea of, in case people weren't familiar, and I can drop some of these links, but they were in the email that I think Courtney sent. The how to use the cleanup and how to use conversation view, those were also under the Get Streamlined topic. And in that YouTube channel, some of those videos are just a couple minutes long, just to make sure that you know all the steps and how to do that. If I recall, one of the things that probably had been the biggest game changer for you, Michael, had been the search folders. Are you still leveraging, now that you've gotten this far, are you still leveraging them to the same degree?
Oh yeah. Yeah, I mean, I went from having individual folders and archives for every single customer to basically 3 or 4 now, which really helps when you're trying to sort emails on your mobile too. Yep.
Okay, so I'm going to do a quick reminder for everybody. And again, there's a video out on it, but let's take the time that we have right now to do it. Here we go, screen share again. So this idea of search folders is, when would you use it? You'd use it when you want to find everything related to that particular case you're working on. And everything could come in based on address or agent name or MLS listing, or, I mean, I'm sure there's many, many other criteria. So a search folder, again, is this idea of a way to like grab everything, no matter where it happens to be stored for the moment. So inbox, sent items, any other folders where you're saving stuff. And the way that you do a search folder, they're hidden down at the end of your inbox list. They're really far down. And you just go to new search folder. And then you can start making some criteria for what that's going to include. Now, for the most part, the ones that you guys are doing are likely custom. And so we just call this, I'm going to just call this like MLS1. And actually, I want to see if I can find a sample email that I'll be able to sloop in.
I can just show you mine if you want.
Why don't you go ahead and do that? I'm going to stop sharing.
All right, so these are all the search folders right now for the active clients. So this is one that's closing today. So I name it based on the closing date, the client's name, and then if the asterisks there, that's just my standard LOA, my normal LOA that does them all. Once in a while, I have multiples like you can see down here where my key is. So that just helps me know who it is. And then the other initials are the processor. So I know which processor is working on them. The actual piece that you were about to show is in the customize area, which is, I'm having it look only in a couple folders. They're all sent, inbox, prospects, and active, which really I don't use this prospects anymore, but there's some older clients that are in there. So that's where it's searching, and what it's searching for is the frequently used text fields, and it's essentially just going to be the name, so long as it's not a common name. If it's a common, I might not have it, like Miller or Johnson, I might skip it or just put the first and last name, the address, the last 6 digits, the loan number, and then their email addresses. That will catch just about every email that possibly comes in for that client. And the rule is set up the same way for these exact same ones. So if any of these are present in an email body or text, it'll automatically forward it to the LOA as well. And that's a separate piece, but it's the same search function. So when I set up the rule, I set up the search folder, and then it just lines up and it works. And you can see every single one of these customers is a different search folder of active loans that are currently in process moving towards closing, but they all are actually in this one folder right here, the Keep 2 folder. So that's the real folder. These are the search folders down here.
So talk about a way of simplifying your storage. because you're not worried anymore about storing everything in a particular loan folder. Instead, everything is stored in the keep folder. So one place to go look, and it's grabbing the stuff that you're looking for based on that particular search criteria.
One other thing that's done, I mean, if I would have waited a few minutes, I did this about 10 minutes before, but as I'm clearing these up, when I shut the rules off, because as I add the folders, I'll also remove those that are closed. All I would do is Control A, hit archive right up here, and it would move them all to the archive folder and clear them up as well, and it's done, and then I'm out of the way. So that's the last step. So then they go away. So I never have this massive list of client or, folders anymore either.
So literally everything there is active.
Everything here right now is active. Yeah, you can see that's
right?
Today's date. So
right. So I mean, that to me too, again, that process. So it's like under you, I mean, part of the reason why Michael's been so wonderful is because he truly took the rules that we taught and then figured out how to implement them into his work in such a clear manner. It really has made a huge difference. So now that
as our branch has grown to be able to still produce, for sure.
Right, as well as, I mean, the branch grown and the market just has picked up incredibly. So you're processing so much more as well. So it makes a huge difference. Seeing that, what kind of questions do you guys have at this point? Because here's what Michael has done. Literally, we name this tool Overcoming Inbox Overwhelm. He's no longer really operating in his inbox. So the faster you can go from going to your inbox to try to figure out what to do, to just doing what you need to do and coming up with those processes, whether it's rules or search folders or whatever. And in Michael's case, those rules are moving those messages, they're forwarding those messages to the people who actually need to be doing the work.
If I would have been thinking about it again, because I just went through and did a quick overview of all those files, there were 650 unread emails in that active folder that had been since the last time I checked them all. I just simply scanned them all, made sure that my team wasn't missing anything. I found 2 or 3 things in a matter of 30 minutes on all those active loans that I didn't think they had taken handle on, and they were all done. I mean, it really expedites it. But the automation allows me to trust that, allows me to delegate instantly, and I obviously have to trust that they're going to do it and get me involved when not. We have one thing we haven't talked about is we have a secret code. If they send me an email with a hashtag inbox altogether, it stops all the rules and it sits right at the top of my list so that I will be able to get to it instantaneously when I'm in my inbox the next time as well. So everybody in the branch knows that.
So again, a process, a habit, a communication, because you needed something that was going to be an exception. There you go.
Yeah, I mean, literally a rule to stop the rules is what that was.
That's awesome.
Next level, buddy. That's unreal.
In seeing that, I mean, I kind of think like hashtag inbox goals, right? Because I look at that and I mean, when we started to have the conversation about like all of these messages are going to have in common, and as soon as you figure that out, that's where you can get into some of that streamlining stuff and setting up those rules. Once you figure that out, it can really change the game. Other questions? Again, I think the way that I think about this for you guys is if there was something that could be made better in your inbox, what would it be? Right? Like if you could have, and saying like make all the emails disappear is not probably the best answer. But if you could have something better in your inbox, what would it be?
Yeah, some way to filter like what's important, what you got to take action on right away.
Well, so here's some other things, Tim, to think about is like, is that stuff coming internal or external? Right? So I think part of where Michael and I had this idea early on was like a version of a hashtag that you could use for consistent recognition. Like if you use something, again, something common across so many things. So in Michael's case, the hashtag inbox, which stops all the rules. When I was working in a corporate setting, my boss at the time was trained everybody internally that if you want his attention on something in the subject line, it needed to start with like action. And if it was only for his information, he wanted to start with FYI, because he set up his rules in his inbox that, that led, then his habit became that. And when people would give pushback on that, I would just, I'm still going to get to my inbox on a regular basis, but by following this idea, your stuff goes to the right spot for me to work on it faster.
That makes sense.
But you coming up with the system that's going to work out best for you and for your team. But I mean, I've seen that kind of thing, like put in a subject line or in a signature line that says, for faster attention, be sure to add this, or and you also can set something up. Let me see if I can show you this piece and if it'll work the way that I'm thinking. So it depends on how much work you want to do on the front end of something. But when I do a new message, one of the options that we have is this thing called direct replies to. Direct replies to. And, if stuff isn't supposed to come back to you after, if it really should belong to somebody else on your team, using that tool, right? It's in, again, let me show you where it is. So when you do a new message, so we're in our regular new message, it's under the options tab. And it's this guy over here called More Options, Direct Replies To. And again, it just might be another way to keep the process flowing. Again, the thing that I'm sure none of you want is you don't want to be the bottleneck in the process. So we want to create things in the process that can help reduce those bottlenecks.
Yeah, that's true. This is good. Thanks, Jennifer. This is great info.
You bet. I'm glad we have helped. And again, you don't have to watch all the videos that are out there, but if there's anything that you need some reminders on, that's the intention of those.
Perfect.
Guys, I think you should watch the videos like 3 or 4 times each. I've taken Jennifer's class live here locally, and then again online through this piece, and watch the videos, and it really becomes more and more clear the more you hear it, and you'll get ideas. The first time I got it, I felt super overwhelmed, in fact, which is a little bit ironic, considering the name of it. But the over time, you realize what it looks like, and then look at other areas in your own process. What I use might be very different because my process is very different. Very few people are comfortable with the level of hands-off I'm at with my team. I mean, I really trust that they're going to do it. And when I'm okay when they make mistakes, they're not perfect. None of us are. But there's, your process might be very different. Your leads might come in differently. It's all, each part you have to really kind of critically evaluate what you're learning and apply it to your own processes, because they're going to be different for each of us. And watching the videos multiple times was what helped me figure it out.
Good point. Well, and so this is the other part, you really can only make incremental improvement, right? Like if you try to go through and work on the streamlined stuff, you'll get somewhere, but you might not get as far as if you had started at the beginning. So in the end, to take, some parts of it and just, try to solve your biggest problem first, and then go back and, keep working on the enhancements. We definitely have time for more questions. Again, if it's something like I'm really stuck with, even if you didn't watch the videos, if it's stuff where we can help, what is your bottleneck? What is your biggest pain points here? And here's the thing, I know you guys are in a very busy environment, and it's a very email heavy, intense environment. So figuring out what Michael has done is he's figured out what works for him. And I think even he said for his team, Michael checks his inbox less frequently, which was to be expected based on the process he put in place. But his team is checking it every hour. But you can't live in your inbox waiting for the next thing to come. You know, if all of those documents are residing in a certain place and that's what you're working through is on each loan at a time, that's where people who are trying to get the most stuff done, that's where they're going to be. So again, the frequency of checking for new stuff, especially when you can get some of that automated, if you reduce that, you're going to be able to spend more time actually in the doing part rather than in the, wondering what we should be doing next. Michael, has your team found, some with you implement, because you've done this now probably over the last year-ish. How has your team adapted to some of these changes?
We revisit it from time to time, but they have definitely adapted. I don't see that any of them get stuck in their inbox. I mean, the biggest challenge is the biggest piece is the empowerment to feel like it's okay to shut their email off for a few hours, and so we they know to let us know when they're going in and doing whatnot. So we have a heads up. Here's a back way to connect with us if you truly have an emergency kind of a situation. I mean, the biggest challenges that we run into, I think, are people expecting an instant reply, whether that be internal or external, and how that works. So once you get over the fact that I'm not expecting and nobody's really expecting, and we generally still run into issues, and we have a closer. People don't pick up the phone if they email in a last minute item and they just expect a reply. We still see that. I'm sure everybody on this call knows exactly what I'm talking about with that stuff. And when that comes up and something gets missed, I remind them that, hey, email is to send a message. You need to IM or call us if you have something that's literally 30 minutes from closing, and gently remind them that particularly in my case, my job is to manage a branch of 14 employees and produce. And that means I can't be sitting in front of my email all day, every day, and I even have to remind my managers that sometimes, and it's some more than others, that I have to keep my priorities that way and be okay with it, because that FOMO is what really drives a lot of these problems that we are dealing with right now.
And I will say, now, this doesn't work for everybody, but one of the solutions that I've seen to some of that is literally updating the signature line. And for each, for some people, they'd say, I check email approximately hourly, or I check email approximately 3 times a day, or whatever that is. And if you need something within the next 30 minutes, please call. Something, and I don't want to go the route of autoresponders for that, because that gets tiresome and overwhelming as well. But as a regular form of communication, or the other part might be that you have a quick response, like that you can just type in, so that if you do happen to see a message that comes in and it's not something you're going to be able to get to in the next 30 minutes or whatever that is, like, just get a response saying, your email has been delivered and the estimated time of response is this, and if you need something sooner, call. Like, think about how that whole thing flows in the process. And we're not trying to add more work, but we also want to be clear around what the communication expectations are.
The other thing that I do a lot of times when I'm in my inbox is I disconnect my laptop from when I'm sorting and doing all that, I disconnect my laptop from my docking station so I don't have my extra monitor. So it forces me to only be looking at one screen. It makes it incredibly uncomfortable to do anything else and multitask in that time, because otherwise it'll take forever.
Way to get focused. I mean, that's laser focused. I love it. All right. So again, we're going to make a last round call for you guys. I appreciate everybody jumping on today. The intention definitely is to make sure that you guys are more comfortable and confident with the materials provided. And these materials are available to your organization right now through the end of March. So even if it's something, this is figuring out, like, I just want to solve this problem, then there's some of those topics available for you to solve that problem. Otherwise, if you're ready to go through the whole process, it is recommended you start at the beginning. because you'll find that you're going to get clean, and then you're going to get organized, and then you're going to do the get started, which is about your prioritization. And then the last part is all the streamlined parts. And it really does help you. You know, if you invest that kind of time to do it, it can really save you some time down the road. All right, I'm doing a last call for questions, comments, anything else that you guys need.
This was great. Appreciate it.
Thanks for coming, Vaughn. Again, if you have any other questions, you guys know where to reach out.
Thanks, Jennifer.
Thanks, Michael.
Thank you.
You bet. Take care, Tim.
Thank you.
Thank you. Take care.
Thank you.
Thank you.